Today we're going to talk about Wuthering Heights. I love a period piece. I really do. I really love a good period piece. I grew up with classics like Pride and Prejudice. And when I say Pride and Prejudice, I also mean the miniseries Pride and Prejudice with Colin Firth. The ultimate Mr. Darcy. Mwah. So good. There's been plenty of adaptations of Little Women. The recent one by Greta Gerwig is really, really good. And now we have a new iteration of Wuthering Heights. I've never seen any iteration of Wuthering Heights. Wuthering. It's one of those words you gotta let me get by with this one. Okay, I'm gonna fuck it up so many times in this review. I'm sorry. I know how it's spelled. That has to count for something. I've never seen any version of Wuthering Heights, and I kind of made the mistake of reading a synopsis of the book before seeing this movie. And I think that was probably a mistake because there were some expectations there as far as characters, their motivations, where the story might be headed. However, I don't mind deviations from a book, and I knew that Emerald was going to deviate from this. Emerald Fennell is the director. She has done Promising Young Woman, which I haven't seen. I want to. But more recently, she did Saltburn. Everybody knows Saltburn. At least if you're watching this on TikTok, you know Saltburn, or at least you know the scenes from Saltburn. All right, so I think there was already an expectation in people's heads about what this movie was going to be a little bit. To some extent, right? And again, going back, I don't mind deviations from the source material. So when I tell you that I fucking didn't like this movie at all, it's not because it deviated from the source material. I've never read the source material. I read the synopsis, basically. And, let me give you a recent example. Here's the thing. A movie is a movie. A movie is a movie. I'm a film critic. What I mean by that is a movie needs to stand on its own 2 feet. It needs to tell its story. It needs to be concise. It needs to be self-contained. That's the medium. And I don't care if it's an original screenplay or if you're adapting a book or a game or this or that. A fucking cave painting off a wall somewhere. A movie needs to be its own thing. And if you look at something like, look at Dune, specifically Dune Part 2, there are plenty of spots where that film deviated from the second half of the original novel. It has to. A novel is so dense. There's so much in it. And a movie is a different medium entirely. A novel is like an author sets the foundation for the world and then you fill it in. You paint that world that the author is kind of setting up for you. They're setting you up for success to live in the greatest version of that story that they've written for you, which is the amazing thing about books. That's why it's such an amazing medium that I rarely ever get around to visiting. What fascinates me about a film is that it is a distinct vision. Well, best case scenario, the director's vision of what they want. It's their world they're painting for you and presenting it to you and being like, here, do you like this? Take it or leave it, And I think Denis Villeneuve, that's another name. I know I'm not great with names sometimes, so I apologize. But he did his adaptation and he was sure about it. And he employed a lot of great actors and artists to help him paint that world, and it's amazing. And I love the deviations from the story. Granted, I read Dune back in high school, so I was just like a little fucking idiot. And what did I know? I'm like, I like an ornithopter. But seeing that movie on the big screen, that's one of the great sci-fi sequels of our time. Dune Part 2. So good. I wish I saw that movie instead. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk a little bit about the story. And just to let you know, I'm not going to get into spoilers for the movie, and I'll refrain from getting too spoilery about the book as well. but I don't really think there's a lot to spoil here, just to be honest. Like, if you see the trailer, you kind of know the direction this is headed, and maybe save for like for the last 10 to 15 minutes of the movie, you're not exactly sure what's going to happen, I guess. But I think anyone that's seen a movie will probably guess what's going to happen. All right, Wuthering Heights. Let's get into it. So Wuthering Heights is it's a farmhouse. It's like farmland, and somewhere I think northern England, countryside. Think countryside. It's pretty fucking remote, and it centers on the owner of this land is Mr. Eastwood, Clint Eastwood. That's not right. I am so bad with all of these names. Sorry guys, I have to cheat on this one. I'm looking at the family tree. There is one. Earnshaw Eastwood. Fuck. I'm losing all my critic cred. If it exists, I've lost it all. I'm cashing it all in on my Wuthering Heights review. Anyway, Mr. Earnshaw, and he has a daughter, Catherine, and he adopts this boy who they end up naming Heathcliff, and he's different. He can't read. He doesn't like talk too well. I'm one to talk. But Earnshaw decides to raise him in his house with his daughter, and he's got a few servants and whatnot. And we follow them as children, and of course Catherine and Heathcliff form a bond. You know, they're the only two ones there, so naturally they're going to form a bond. And I feel the first third of this movie is probably its strongest. As you've seen from the trailers, the cinematography is very striking, and the music is pretty good too. Charlie XCX, you know. The music is a lot better than the movie she put out recently, I'm afraid to say. But anyway, it's kind of this Great Expectations feel to it, where there's kind of, you sense like a budding romance, but you know, he's poor and nobody knows him, and he's not sure where he's from or who his family is, and she wants to marry wealthy, and because that's what one does. It's a period piece. That's what people do. They marry wealthy, and like, you've done it. You've won life. You know, there is a time jump, and then we're presented with Heathcliff and Catherine, played by Jacob and Margot, respectively. Now, it's not really established in the movie how old they're supposed to be. In the book, they're teenagers, which could explain some of their actions, because they act silly as fuck in this movie. Like, they act like immature little brats, man. They're really little shits. But basically, there are some neighbors that move in. I'm cheating again. The Lintons. And Catherine fancies the owner there, Edgar. And of course, Heathcliff is like, I don't know how I feel about this. So eventually he fucks off. Catherine and Edgar start a relationship, and then Heathcliff comes back. And guess what? He's wealthy. Or at least he's presenting wealthy. I don't know. He's got some nice suits and a gold tooth. But like, we're never told where he got the money or if he actually has money. I guess we're just supposed to assume that. And I guess that part of the story is almost like a Count of Monte Cristo thing. Like, you know, coming back for his kind of revenge, because he was mistreated as a kid, and, you know, it turns out like his family kind of shunned him, and then his adopted father didn't really fancy him that much. And then finally, Catherine was like the final nail in the coffin, right? You know, if she's about to fuck off with this other guy, Edgar. So he's like, what do I have left to do except kind of carry out my revenge, kind of. But it's a romance, kind of. See, that's the thing about this movie. That's the setup. I know I did a poor job at setting up the fucking story. But it's weird because this presents such a small portion of the novel. The movie only covers the first half of the book. And that's kind of, I guess, the romantic aspects of it, kind of. Because while there is romance in the story to a degree, it's a coming of age. It's about coming of age, it's about infatuation, it's about prejudice and pride, you know, and it's about how some of these things, if you hold on to them, if you foster them in the wrong way, they can eat you up inside and they can destroy you and they can destroy the people around you. And it's a really, like, just reading the synopsis, I was really compelled by it. And I was like, all right, I know that Emerald is not going to dive into most of the second half of the book. I'll spare you the details of that, but it's kind of cool stuff, at least to me, dealing with like generational trauma and shit like that. But I was hoping that she would work in some of those dark, kind of gothic, monstrous undertones. You know, it's almost like this weird gothic Jane Eyre vibe. And she doesn't really do it. And the sad thing is, it's like, oh, okay, you were looking for this thing over here, Sean, but did she do this thing over here? No. The romance is awkward. Oddly enough, Margot and Jacob don't really have much chemistry on screen. You know, even Margot, well, her character, Catherine, she constantly mistreats, you know, Heathcliff. And she's like, oh, but don't you know I love you? Like, after being a piece of shit to him all the time. And then when Heathcliff comes back, he's just a piece of shit to kind of everyone, you know. Especially Isabella, which is Edgar's sister. And Isabella, I gotta look this up, because there are two great performances in the movie. One is by the young actor who plays young Heathcliff, and he's the kid from Adolescence. I have not seen Adolescence. Why are these ads popping up? I'm trying to record a review. His name, give me a second, Owen Cooper. Great performance. Loved it. Felt genuine, felt real. Fantastic job. The other great performance of the film is by Alison Oliver, who plays Isabella. And her character kind of flips midway through the movie. So, since Catherine is fancying Edgar, this is not Twilight. I kind of wish it was. Twilight was more fun. Since Kathy is fancying Edgar, Heathcliff is now going after Edgar's sister, Isabella. And Isabella, the way Allison portrays Isabella is she's off in her own world, into her own interests, and it's done for, like, you know, laughs and stuff. But the moment that Heathcliff comes onto her, there's something that just snaps in her. And she is, for lack of a better term, dignitized. How could you not be? It's Jacob Elordi. I kind of get it. He's very tall. But, like, the role is still kind of played for laughs, but she does it so convincingly and without sacrificing, I think, the crux of the character, without making it feel like a parody or something like that. Even though the movie does get kind of silly at times. A fantastic performance by her. I can't wait to see her in more stuff. Alison Oliver. Write that name down somewhere. But going back to our leads, Margot and Jacob, they're fine. I never really bought it as this kind of... I think the movie wants to sell Wuthering Heights as a Romeo and Juliet. Kind of this tragic romance, like, oh, they should have got together when they were younger, and now Edgar is here and Isabella, and they've kind of crossed lines with each other, and now it's all fucked up. I wish it was fucked up. It's really kind of a bore. Because I know what you're thinking. It's like, all right, Sean, all those aspects of the novel that you kind of dug reading the synopsis, they're not there. And then the romance, that's not quite there. But what about the horniness? What about the patented Emerald Fennell fucking horniness? Remember Saltburn? Barry Keoghan. What a horny goblin he was in that film. You know? And sadly, this adaptation of Wuthering Heights, it's rated R, but it feels like PG-13. Like, if you told me it was PG-13, I would have been like, oh, that makes sense. That's why we couldn't really see much of anything. A lot of it's suggestive, you know? Sometimes there'll be a look, or they'll say something, and then kind of look at each other, and then the next shot is like a close-up of a slimy slug, or somebody kneading some dough, like, oh, the dough is really your butt. You know, I don't know. Just whatever, stuff like that. And even the scenes that are supposed to come off as like really hot and heavy are kind of funny. You know, there's a scene, mild spoiler, I guess, where Margot is out finger banging herself by some rocks, as one does. And then Jacob Elordi comes along. I have given up on the character names. Heathcliff, whatever. He comes along and he's just kind of watching her. And the movie cuts back and forth between her perspective and his. And you know, she's feeling it. So she moans, and, you know, he's watching and he goes, And so it goes back and forth from, It's like, it was so stupid. But beautifully shot. Wonderful cinematography. By the way, speaking of Dune, the cinematographer of this movie is working on, or has shot, Dune Part 3. Or Dune Messiah, whatever they end up calling the movie. Which I think bodes well for us Dune fans. This movie is kind of horny, but it doesn't deliver the goods. Like, there's maybe a scene or two here. Honestly, the hottest scene has very little to do with Margot and Jacob, and I'll just let you discover that for yourself, where they witness someone else. But, you know, I don't know about you, but I like smut in my smut. You know what I mean? What happened to fucking hot-ass movies? You know, I think the most you get, and like, visually, is like Jacob Elordi wet without a shirt, and then Margot Robbie just pushing up everything she has in a bra or a corset, and that's kind of it. But I don't even mean from a visual standpoint. I mean, I think like this. I look like fucking Professor X or something. Logan. Stupid. That's not a good Patrick Stewart at all. But like, I think back to that movie. Did you guys ever see Hitman with Richard Linklater? It's Hitman. And that just felt like an adult relationship that was fun and hot and sexy just because of the way it was presented it and from the way the actors carried it, and they had chemistry, and I liked them together. I wanted to see more of them together. What I loved about Hitman, this is now a review about Hitman, is that I enjoyed spending time with the characters, and I didn't care too much about the plot. In fact, the movie lost me a little bit towards the end because I just wanted to hang out with those characters. And I think that the joy of a period romance or a period piece is that there's so much restraint until a crescendo, an emotional crescendo of sorts. And that's fine if that's not the route you want to go with this. However, they don't bother to deliver the goods. Like, it's trying to straddle this line, and it's trying to edge the audience, but not in a fun way like White Lotus does. That's a show that knows how to edge the audience. Here it's just frustrating. You get blue balls from watching this fucking movie, you know? And that's a shame because at the end of the day, it feels like this movie doesn't know what it wants to be. Does it want to be this kind of anachronistic, fun pop version of a period piece? You know, kind of like a Baz Luhrmann, Great Gatsby, Romeo and Juliet would go. No, it's not quite that. Or does this want to be this like hot and heavy, like just smutty, dirty, you know, like romance book you would pick up, a trade paperback or something? No, it's not that either. Well, does it want to be that classic gothic romance? No, it doesn't quite do that either. It's just like, it's kind of all over the place. It wants to have its cake and eat it too, I guess, or just throw the cake in the fucking ocean and then masturbate by some rocks, I guess. I don't know. And as the movie went on, I felt it just became the worst thing that this kind of movie could be, which is boring. A boring romance is a failed romance. That means we as the audience are not invested in them, that we don't care what happens to them. We breathe a sigh of relief when it is over. I kind of feel bad. I feel like I did not set myself up for success, as they would say at work, regarding this movie. Like, maybe reading the synopsis was a bad idea because it planted a seed in my head of the directions the story could go. But honestly, I feel like even if I go into a movie expecting not to like it, the moment I sit down and the lights dim and like the opening titles hit, I am allowing that movie to basically convince me. I'm like, listen, just do your thing, and I'm going to try to go along for this ride. Because, like, I have nothing to gain from hating every movie I see, you know? And I feel bad a lot, apparently. But just recently, I saw good luck, have fun, don't die. I went into that movie not knowing a damn thing, and I had such a great time with it. It's like, would I have felt the same way if I had not read the synopsis? No. Because all the criticisms I have are still valid about the chemistry, the acting, the direction, the angle this movie was trying to take us in, the costumes. Some people like the costumes. I thought they were kind of cosplay garbage. I don't know. Again, it feels anachronistic, but that's fine if the movie was going to go all in on that. But it didn't, Again, it felt pulled in different directions. I looked like I was just jerking off two guys into my face, which is sexier than anything you'll see in this movie, I promise you. At this point, I feel like I'm just ranting about how much I didn't like the movie. So I'll just tell you, I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. It started off okay, but it quickly goes downhill when you realize that it doesn't really have anything up its sleeve. Like the characters in the film, they present all their cards immediately, and it feels like there's nowhere for the story to really go. There's no journey for us to take. We're just waiting for things to happen, and when they do or don't happen, more often than not, we're disappointed by them. And how fucking disappointing is that for like a Valentine's flick, a Valentine's flick, for a period romance, for this tragic gothic romance of sorts. The tragedy is the movie itself, unfortunately, and the weird-ass marketing campaign of like seeing Margot and Jacob, like, is Jacob really into her? I don't know. It's a trend I've seen in marketing, like as far as movies go, where people are like, are the actors really into each other? Are Liam Neeson and Pamela Anderson really boning? And in the end, no. It's like, that's their job. It's like a weird PR stunt, and I don't like that either. It's like, just be you. It's weird. Unless you're Ariana and Cynthia, that was a fun marketing event for those two movies. Probably better than the movies themselves. Yeah, so I didn't like this movie. Just to touch upon it real quick. Now, I didn't do a great study on this. I did look up some articles. I read some people's thoughts who have read the book. Heathcliff is described as basically unknown where he came from. However, he has darker skin and black hair. A lot of people feel he's probably Romani, emigrated to somewhere in, different parts of Europe. There's a lot of different, Romani, subcultures in there, so I couldn't even tell you which one. I think in the book, Kathy teases that he could be, the son of a great, Chinese royalty or Indian royalty, perhaps. So it's suggested that he might be a mixed race. What is kind of evident, though, that the author was going for is that he was not a pale white man. So there's that. It would have been cool, but if they got a person of color in there, if they were doing a more faithful adaptation of the book, because that is more central to the book. We didn't get into the book at all. All right, I got to backpedal a little bit here. You thought the review was done. Wrong. In the book, one major character removed is Kathy's brother. There's a whole ass brother they just took out of the story, and he's integral to the novel because he belittles Heathcliff. He hates Heathcliff because his father loves him for some reason and champions him and seems to favorite him. So he has that jealous sibling rivalry, heated, you might say. So that's a driving force into why Heathcliff does what he does. And without that in the movie, it doesn't work as well. It doesn't make as much sense. But going back to Heathcliff being a person of color, it's they should have done it, but this is barely even an adaptation of that novel. So it's I don't even care because I don't even like the movie, But that's not me to decide. I'm not sure what excuse Emerald had. I think she said oh, I just didn't imagine it that way. I'm well, you didn't really imagine the book either, judging from the movie. It felt like she watched the movie in high school and wrote some smut before she knew what actual smut was. And that's Wuthering Heights. Bring sexy movies back. Somebody. What's the next sexy movie coming out? I'm going to Google it. Let's see. Next sexy movie coming out. What do you think Google's going to say? Esquire did a, this is a fun bit. Esquire did a most anticipated sexy movies of 2026. Oh, of course, the first picture is fucking Wuthering Heights. Pillion. That's the Alexander Skarsgård BDSM movie. That looks good. It's gotten some great reviews, I can tell you that. Let's see, we got a movie called The Drama. Does that look sexy? With Zendaya and Robert Pattinson? I think just people associate them with being sexy people. Mother Mary. Oh, that's the David Lowery movie. I love David Lowery. He did the Green Knight, which everyone's bored by, but I fucking love that movie. There's a period piece. There's another Sense and Sensibility. Oh my God. I just saw the Ang Lee one in theaters recently. It was pretty good. It's not my favorite. This one has, let's see, Daisy Edgar-Jones and Frank Delane. All right. Girls Like Girls, which is, from what I understand, a movie based on a book based on a music video. Could be interesting. Ooh, Gail Daughtry and the Celebrity Sex Pass. That is directed by David Wayne, who did Wet Hot American Summer. I don't know if it's going to be sexy, but it's going to be awesome. All right, well, that's all Esquire has. So that's my list of sexy movies coming out in 2026. Excuse me. But I guarantee you that I'm going to drink this water. I guarantee you that any of those movies are going to be sexier than this one. Anyway, sorry, this review ran a little long. I went on a bit of a rant. But my reviews are kind of rants anyway. I promise I'll get better as far as I go along. Be more composed and concise. But for now, it's 1:30, so it's time for me to go. But thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.